This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's family.
Well, it's always a busy time in the Valley of the Sports. The Super Bowl is coming to town. The NBA trade deadline is approaching. What will the Phoenix Suns do? Let's talk to an expert, a man with some breaking news today on social media. Espo zooms in here to the Extra Point Podcast, and you're getting word that a Suns legend was perhaps eating lunch with the new Suns owner. What is going on in Michigan, Espo?
I don't know exactly. I can tell you this much. A source told me that Steve Nash, the legendary Suns point guard, was in fact in the offices of UWM, the company that Mat Ishbia owns in Michigan. I'm going to take a wild guess that he wasn't there to get a good deal on a mortgage. That's just my guess.
Well, I mean, maybe he's perhaps setting up shop back here in Phoenix. I could argue, I really thought at the time, I realized he wanted to go out to L.A. and chase a championship, but seeing him in a Lakers uniform just felt wrong. It would be right to have Steve Nash come back and come back to where he belongs, back to his living room.
Well, Mark, let's be very clear. That was a Trojan horse operation where he took down the Lakers from the inside. So I'm all right with it. He was still a Sun while he was there in my books. But yes, it would be nice to have him back in the organization in some capacity, even if it's just as an advisory role to Mat Ishbia. It would be great to have him involved.
How much do you think Steve Nash could sway maybe Kevin Durant to rethink perhaps a certain trade request that was made last summer?
Well, as they said in the great movie Animal House, 0.0. They apparently KD was a big reason why Steve Nash isn't on the bench there anymore. So I'm guessing he would have little to no sway, and it might actually turn things the other direction. Look, I think the KD ship has sailed and sailed back in this past offseason. If you're looking for big fish for Mat Ishbia to go after, I think you got to start looking at different names.
Well, it seems like Mat Ishbia, I think he might have been number 13 when he played for Tom Izzo in Michigan State. So you wonder if there's a connection there, maybe wanting to talk basketball. Steve Nash was an advisor for the Golden State Warriors for years. So I could see him help out the organization. And, I mean, he played with James Jones. So you think that connection would be there, as many open looks as he got for James Jones.
Yeah, and look, I'll say this much. I've heard there were other well-known NBA names that had gone through the UWM offices. I can't really say any of those, but Steve Nash isn't the only one. So it could just be Mat Ishbia doing his due diligence to try to understand as much about the NBA game, and in particular the Phoenix Suns franchise, as he can. It could be that simple. I do not have any word on anything other than Nash being there. So it could be just that he's having conversations with guys who have been around the league to ensure that he comes in on the right foot.
And Ishbia was actually number 15 for Michigan State, so perhaps a big campaign fan. Maybe that's going too far back. All right, so Kevin Durant, 0.0. We looked at we heard the Animal House quote, and there's bonus points for Animal House quotes here in the Extra Point. The more you can fit in, you will actually get some merchandise. We have some basketballs and footballs downstairs. I'll bring those by the office. So if Kevin Durant's not coming here, who's coming back for Jay Crowder, in your opinion?
Right now, a pack of Marlboro Lights and some stickers maybe for the kids. I don't know at this point. I tweeted it earlier today, but I would lower those expectations if it's just simply Jay Crowder as the only element going out in a trade. The Bucks are very interested. Shams Charania of The Athletic today reported that the Suns are allowing Jay Crowder and his people to have one-on-one meetings with the Bucks. So I'd imagine he's on his way to Milwaukee. You don't give that kind of access to a player that's under contract with you unless it's pretty close to a done deal there. But what the Bucks have to offer, is not a lot. It's George Hill, it's Serge Ibaka, it's a second-round pick, it's Jordan Nwora. Like there's guys that are there, but they're just guys in a lot of situations. So I'm not overly excited for what I've been hearing in terms of the Jay Crowder return right
Well, and Chris Paul was kind of saying last week he would welcome him back and what they missed with him. You think there's any way that Jay Crowder ever puts on a Suns uniform again? And please use the Animal House quote as you answer this one as well.
I don't have anything queued up when it comes to Animal
Was
House.
it over? Was it over?
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? No, it wasn't. But I think this one's over. I think it is. I love that we're playing to the key demo here. You know, a 70s, 80s comedy is really right there what the youngins like to quote nowadays. But look, I don't see Jay Crowder coming back here. It sounds like the issue had to do maybe with the coaching staff, maybe with the front office. And if he hasn't come back or shown an inclination to come back when this team needed him the most, when they were decimated by injuries, I don't see them bringing him back after the trade deadline. I'd actually see it more likely that they just say, all right, sit home. We're not going to buy you out either. And good luck in the offseason. Then I would see him coming back in the fold.
All right, so they have the Raptors tonight. So if we're getting a bag of magic beans in return from Milwaukee, if you could pluck anybody off the Raptors that is potentially, on the trading block right now, who would that be?
Well, I mean, obviously, if Pascal Siakam becomes available, that's the name you jump at. He would be a true number 2 next to Devin Booker. You'd have him for the next handful of years. But for me, I look at 2 names, OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr., where those would be guys that are legitimately on the block from everything you're hearing, and that you may have the assets to get. Now, Anunoby's going to cost you a pretty penny and could even come at the cost of a DeAndre Ayton if you're really interested in it. But of that roster, those 2 are the names that I go, that might be realistic. Now, Fred VanVleet, maybe, but he's 29. He's slid back in terms of shooting this year. I don't know that he's the right fit for this team, even though they're searching for a Chris Paul replacement. I'm not sure that's the guy.
All right, so if you look at it then, as far as with the deadline kind of closing in here, do you feel like the Suns have to make a move?
Yes, and it's not just Jay Crowder. Like, you have to move Jay Crowder. I think that's very clear, and they will. But for me, it's expiring contracts of Dario Saric and deals like that are coming off the books this year, and you're in a salary cap situation where if you don't make a move to bring in a guy that either has a long-term contract or that you can re-sign, you're going to lose that cap space. I think it's roughly, if you count Jay Crowder, somewhere in the $25 to $30 million range in expirings, if you count campaign, Torrey Craig, others. And once that's off the books, it's not like you're going to have $30 million to go shopping with. You're going to be a team that's over the cap, and you're going to have the mid-level exception and the biannual exception. One's usually around 11 million. The other, I believe, is around 6. Depends on what the salary cap is next year. And that would be it in terms of being able to get guys on the open market. So you're not finding massive solutions to any of the problems that you have if you don't trade these expiring contracts for guys you might want to keep on for the long term, because you can sign your own guys and go over the cap, but you can't sign a player off the street as a free agent and go further over the cap. It's not allowed.
So how active do you expect the Phoenix Suns to be as we approach deadline day?
How active do I want them to be? Extremely. How active do I think they'll be? If the past has taught us anything, it's that James Jones hasn't been active. I mean, basically he's traded for what amounts to Torrey Craig twice on deadlines in the last 2 years. So he's not available. Obviously, he's on your roster. So you're not making that deal again, unless it's some really bizarre 3-way deal that you get him back in. But I don't know. Like, Mat Ishbia may push for something, and it may make James Jones go further than he usually has or that he's been comfortable with. But the smart thing is to make a move and use those expiring contracts to not only help you this season, but give you additional flexibility going into the offseason.
If DeAndre Ayton were to leave town, what does that do to the championship window?
Depends on who you get back. I think if you got a Gary Trent and OG Anunoby back in a deal, and then you could potentially swing a second deal for somebody else that could split minutes at center with Landell and Bismack. I don't know that would change your window drastically for the negative. It may actually put you in a better situation because it gives you more scoring options, gives you more flexibility when it comes to having additional wings out there. But DA, if he performs like he did in the 2001 finals run and that the playoff run there, it's tough to replace that as well. So it's a big toss up, like everything with DeAndre Ayton. It's a big, I don't know.
Well, and I watched Hakeem Olajuwon develop into the great player that he was, but there was a lot in the late 80s and early 90s, frustration with the franchise. He wanted out of town. He was sitting out because he was hurt. And I just see the footwork with DA. And, yeah, Devin Booker, they were having that conversation on Saturday where it looked like Book was coaching him up a little too much, and DA didn't like it. But I just wonder, is this going to be one of those great Phoenix sports what-ifs if you let him go with the talent? Is there any fear there?
Yes, but I think more of the reason why he would blossom in a second situation is the fact that he would no longer be encumbered by the fact that he was taken ahead of Luka. Because if once he's not in Phoenix, that isn't the albatross around his neck anymore, right? It's a footnote in his career. In the second city, they're just going to worry about what can he do? How does he help this team? Where here he carries the baggage of the fan base and the way they look at that. And there's a lot of expectations for any guy with his teammates, even when he comes in as a number one pick. So I think it may be more of the freedom of no longer having that weight and those expectations on him that would propel him to a bigger career elsewhere if he does get done.
Devin Booker comes back in the lineup. Hopefully, what we thought it might be tonight, later on in the week. What do you expect from the Phoenix Suns here down the stretch to get themselves in a playoff position?
Well, look, they have righted the ship. They figured out a way to play here over the last couple of weeks without him, and I think you're just going to see that ceiling raise even higher than where they were playing before if he comes back 100%. Because now Mikal Bridges, and he struggled mightily earlier in this month for whatever reason, if it was injuries or he was tired or whatever the case may be. But we've seen him emerge as a guy that can truly handle the ball, distribute the ball, and has been more aggressive offensively than we've ever seen him. Case in point, the fourth quarter and overtime against the Spurs. So he's unlocked another dimension in his game, which I think will help Devin Booker as well. And Cam Johnson has come back and shown that he still can score, still has that sweet shot from deep. If he can stay healthy, all of a sudden things start to look better. They still need to add a piece or two, but I think this is a 3 or 4 seed in the West. And if things go really their way, they could compete for 2 and maybe even put the pressure back on getting to 1, because I've never seen a Western Conference as close as this one, and it left the door wide open for the Suns when Devin comes back.
We're putting our kids in summer camp, and it's right around Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Am I going to be canceling that trip, in your opinion?
No, because they're going to sweep the finals. So
Love it. Hey, merchandising thought, but as we get you out of here, have you thought about like mood glasses? Like they get more orange the more bullish you get on the Suns.
And I've thought that. I've thought a lot of different opportunities here. We're going to work on it. Maybe even some Mark McClune frames where I look a little bit more like you. I just want to be successful, Mark, and I know that you have reached that. So
yes, I'm the picture of success with these bags under my eyes. Can you put some bags under your eyes? And yeah, just put on the golf pullover we get every year from the Phoenix Open, the WM Phoenix Open, which we're excited about. Super Bowl weekend, we going to see you anywhere? Are you going to be out and about?
I don't know. It depends on what the Suns do at the trade deadline and if Mat Ishbia is announced. I may be in my Suns cave. I'd love to make it out to the Waste Management Open on Wednesday and be around for Super Bowl festivities. But work is number one, as you know.
Yes. That's how you become successful, Greg. Thank you for your time and your presence and your gifts and your service and your prayers. And we'll check back in with you after the deadline.
Yeah, and I'd like to also say I'm excited to also be interviewing for the Cardinals coaching job later this week.
Okay, good. Do you run the option? Is that right?
Yes, it's I actually wing tee. It's just a bunch of wing tee. I go way back. It's great. So.
Beautiful. All right, we look forward to that. We'll see what Schefter says about that. Thanks, Greg.
Bye.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.